It's really happening. It's really happening, everybody. The Miami Hurricanes are playing for a national championship, a moment that Miami Hurricanes fans have waited over 23 years. It's finally happening, Jordan. We are back. This is Eye on the U. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us once again. A special national championship edition of Eye on the U, the Miami Herald show about all things the U. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, joined right here next to me. I nodded at the wrong side. I'm so all over the place this week waiting for this game. Here's Jordan McPherson, our writer. As you can see, he's in the present day and in front of a fake Hard Rock Stadium screen there, showing you present day you. This whole thing has been about past and present. I got my Orange Bowl behind me. Thought it was appropriate today to show you the blend of the history of this program with the moment, a big moment as Miami faces Indiana on January 19th to attempt to win the 6th national championship in the program's history. And just those three words, Jordan, national championship game. Miami, for a long time, I think for over a decade, this program was in kind of a mediocre state where they were okay some years. People threw the U back very easily, but really wasn't really the case at all until now. It's kind of still surreal. It's kind of still surreal to think that Miami's playing for a title. Not even winning it yet, but just even playing for a title.
Yeah, no, I'm still trying to process it. I mean, I remember our podcast right after the SMU game, beginning of November, and we're just like, okay, we just got to get through another month. And now, 2 months later, I mean, who would have thought this? I mean, we both thought they were dead in the water. Almost everyone thought they were dead in the water. And yet, they found a way. They found that second gear. They found a third gear at times when they needed it. And it's incredible to think that this team was able to put it all together. This team that at the start of the year looked like a contender was able to go through all the rough patches that I went through midseason and was able to find a way. And that's been basically the story of the season, is just find a way. Just find a way to get your job done and everything will fall into place. Over this last month and a half, everything has fallen into place. It hasn't been the easiest road, even with going through 7 consecutive wins to get here. They had some mishaps. This playoff run was no joke. And they were able to pull it off week after week after week to get to this test with number 10 Miami, the last team in the field, against the only remaining undefeated team in college football in the Indiana Hoosiers. Lowest a hell of a game on Monday.
Lowest seed to make the final in this format. Even when it was a 4-team format, it was hard to get through like this. But I mean, think about that too. Your season on the line. This is still such a new thing in terms of like the history of college football. In the past, it was like one and done. You played your national championship, then the Final Four format came along, and you had to win 2. You're now it's almost like the NCAA. It's not obviously like 6 rounds yet, anyway. Maybe in the future, who knows? They'll get carried away. But
2014 playoff, sure, let's do it.
Yeah,
please no.
No, exactly. But the point being, like every round, you're do or die. In tense situations, like it is, even as good as you are, let's say you're going in and you are the favorite, it's still so difficult. There's so many things that could trip you up along the way. And I compare it to basketball the same way. Like you'll have a Duke or Kansas or somebody. You still could have like one off night and that's it. You're screwed. It's over. Same goes with this from week to week. And Miami keeps finding, not just Miami, like Indiana too did it on their side, but Miami, especially having to win 3 to get here, having to play in the first round. And the first one, down and dirty, low scoring. The second one, a little bit like that, but also having to, take control of that game early, overcome the odds against the defending champion. Then this one against Ole Miss, we'll talk a lot about the Ole Miss game, obviously. Playing about 14 different ways they could have given that game away.
Correct.
And still finding a way to win, because you're sitting there at 27-24 trailing and you're dreading, like you're thinking, are we about to see that mistake that we're going to lament for the next, I don't know how many years or whatever. and they find a way and they get it done. Instead, you have yet another memorable moment on this run of Carson Beck high stepping into the end zone and winning this game. I mean, it's remarkable. Not just like you said, I know you took it through like the whole season, but even just in this playoff window, for them to just and then you find out, that they weren't at their best, and just everything that they've overcome to get to that point, even in these past 3 weeks, is pretty amazing.
Yeah, but I mean, you joked about not 6 rounds, but for Miami, it really has been 7 rounds. Once you get that second loss to SMU, all 4 of those final regular season games, even if they were for the most part against inferior opponents, it was still one more slip up, they were done.
Well, it comes out. It's like the NCAA tournament thing.
Exactly.
It's still Kansas against Arkansas Pine Bluff or somebody. I'm just throwing a name out there. You still got to beat them.
Yeah, exactly. So Miami still had, and the Miamis of years past would have probably slipped up against NC State, or almost definitely would have slipped up that last game at Pitt. This team, to get through those first 4, that was step 1. And then, like you said, breaking down the other 3, A&M was just a dogfight through and through. The Ohio State game was the one for me when they jumped out to that 14-0 lead and then held off the second half rally. That's when it hit me going, this team could actually freaking do something here. And then to see how they had to basically clamp down and just find anything in those final 7 minutes against Ole Miss. I mean, 4 lead changes down the stretch, needing the offense to be the hero. After the defense has been the hero all season, the offense was the one that had to make the plays in crunch time when it mattered the most. And that was our question mark all season. If the game came down to Carson Beck's right arm, do we trust him? And I'm on the record saying I don't know, because we saw what happened when they needed him to against Louisville. We saw what happened when they needed him to against SMU. They went 0-2 in those games. And then he proved me wrong against Ole Miss. He proved that in the crunch time, when it matters, to use his words, with 3 minutes for the rest of their lives, he was able to put together one of the best drives of the season and do it as methodically and as probably well done as they could, leaving as little time as possible for an Ole Miss team that knows how to get the ball down the field pretty freaking fast and give them basically no time whatsoever to try to mount that comeback. It was, again, the emotions watching him crouch down, basically unconsolable in jubilation after that. Just, you saw how much it meant to him, how much it means to this team, how much it means to just this program to get back to this point. And then we talked with Mario Cristobal on Monday, and now it's, okay, that was all fun. We have a game on Monday. Let's go. And just seeing how quickly they're able to flip that switch, that's going to be so critical over this next week in terms of what they do getting ready for Monday and making sure that the emotions, the grand stage, the fact that they're playing at home for this title, the fact that they have to make sure that all of this doesn't come crashing down on them at the biggest time. And seeing how we've seen them handle things all season, and especially these last 2 months, they have to hone in on what they've done right over these last 2 months for 6 more days to then put it all out on the line on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds cliche, but they really are embracing that whole 1-0 mentality. They really are. And you see that, and it's you see how the laser focus is there. And, Carson Beck is Carson Beck. I'm not going to start comparing him to other quarterbacks and whatnot, right. But one thing, you never know what's in someone's mind in like a tense situation on the field and whatnot. But he's reminding me of just that one. I'm just talking about that the one focus, that one thing of like, you see him and he looks calm. Like he doesn't look like even 27-24, the kickoff, they're ready to go. You know, they always show like you break the huddle and getting ready. He looked like it was the first minute of the game. Yeah. And it was just something that, like, you're like, okay, I hope this isn't like just the false appearance, and maybe on the inside he's a nervous wreck or something like that. Maybe he was, I don't know. But that's kind of the stuff that like Joe Montana used to do. That's the stuff Tom Brady does or did. It's, like that and that's the experience. That's the experience of having played in big games. But even for him now, this is uncharted territory now at this point too, in terms of him being at the focal point of a run like this. And it's like, it's still remarkable to show like how the experience is coming through. And to his credit, I know everybody, and justifiably so, this formula of Miami's is what works. The defense playing as well as it does. It didn't play that great against Ole Miss, but in general, it has been able to, and then being able to run the ball. But again, what Carson Beck has stepped up when he's had to, and throughout this playoff run, he's reminded people that he's still a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we talk about the big moments, the big stage. Remember, he never played in the playoff game. Remember, it was Stetson Bennett the 2 years, and then for his first year as a starter was the last year of the 4-year format. They lost the SEC championship game. They didn't get in. Last year, he gets hurt in the SEC championship game, isn't able to play. So he has the big moments, but he's found a way to stay himself as these stages have gotten bigger. And his whole thing, and it's been this thing that I've been saying all year, is it's not the Carson Beck offense. It's the Miami Hurricanes offense. And as long as it's the Hurricanes stay true to what works for them, and that's over these last 3 rounds, handing the ball to Mark Fletcher Jr. and handing the ball to Marty Brown and finding ways to get Malachi Tony open in space and getting yourselves into third and manageables and not having to worry about having to make the big explosive play to drive the offense, they thrive. That's been their MO all season. They sure, of course, they've had a couple big plays, the Keelan Marion bomb and the Malachi Tony touchdown on the second to last offensive drive against Ole Miss, huge. But they haven't had to rely on those to be successful. They know that if they consistently get 4, 5, 6 yards at a time and they don't put themselves in bad situations and put themselves behind in the count, they can thrive. That's been what Shannon Dawson has basically lined up all season, and it's worked. Their defense has kept them in games all season long. Complete and utter hat tip to Corey Heatherman for just what he's been able to do in year 1 as defensive coordinator here. And it's been honestly just eye-opening seeing how much, and again, we talk about last year's team and number 1 offense and what they did with all that, and just how much they were able to flip the roles and yet find a way to get a step further where it's the defense carrying it and the offense doing what it needs to do. The offense not having to be the hero every single game. And it alleviates the pressure from them, but it also gives them the sense of confidence of, hey, we've done these drives before. So what? It's 3 minutes left versus if it was the first drive of the third quarter. We know what it takes to make a successful drive for the Miami Hurricanes. Who cares what time it is? Just run it as we've run it all year, regardless of what the scenarios, regardless of the circumstance. Just play what has made Miami Hurricanes football successful in the 2025 season, and they're doing it.
Yeah. Well, look, we've talked a lot about this Ole Miss game, 31-27. Miami wins the Fiesta Bowl. Miami finally wins a Fiesta Bowl, Jordan, because even that night, I'm sitting there watching the game and I'm going, why can't they win a Fiesta Bowl? Yeah. Like, why, and they finally did.
No, you texting me late in that game with that line. It was just like, and yeah, it was just unbelievable. And again, if you could see inside the press box, or at least on my computer, as I'm trying to sift through basically like 3 different versions of this instant game story, it was just wild. And again, look, those last 7 minutes were unbelievable with how much they had to rally and how much they had to stop the Ole Miss comeback and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the screw job against Ohio State speaks for itself. We know that. And then, I'm a little kid watching Vinny Testaverde throw 5 INTs against Penn State. And now I'm watching this game. And after that incredible performance in the first half to completely shut Ole Miss down for 2 quarters, minus the big run that Kejuan Lacey did. But aside from that, they did nothing in that first half. Yeah. To then still fall behind and all of that, and you're thinking, and all the penalties and the mistakes. Yeah. And I'm like, this bowl is such a house of horrors for them. Like, why? And then that last drive comes. And to Carson Beck's credit, another quarterback might have panicked and thrown that ball away. He waited, found his opening, and ran it in the end zone. But one aspect we wanted to talk about was, as good as the defense was in the first half, they only had 1 sack. Not their best performance. Any level of concern there, or was that just a blip and you think maybe this team puts it back together now, which they're going to have to against Indiana?
Yeah. I mean, there is a little concern, but for me, it goes to Ole Miss style of play. I mean, they're so quick. They're so up-tempo. Trinidad Chambliss knows how to get the ball out of his hand so quickly that I knew the pressure numbers, the hurry numbers, and the pure tackle for loss and sack numbers were going to be low. But the fact that the only sack and the only tackle for loss they had came on the first drive, and it was a Mo Torre blitz that led to an intentional grounding, and it was the grounding call that gets credited for the tackle for loss / sack, that's a little concerning for me. I thought that Bain or Mesidor would have gotten through at least once or twice. We would have thought Keontae Scott would have been able to get in on the blitz and be able to get something. But to their credit, for the most part, they kept the ball in front of them. Despite their bread and butter not finishing and them not being able to get those final plays in the backfield, outside that, there was the big Kewan Lacey play. There were a couple other explosives, but for the most part, they kept the plays in front of them, which, with how dangerous this Ole Miss team is, with how many different weapons they have. I mean, they had 5 different receivers with over 550 receiving yards. They had Kewan Lacey, who we saw that one run was able to burst for 73 yards, longest play that Miami's given up all year. But outside of those couple plays, they kept everything where they needed it to. Granted, was there a throw or 2 or 5 or 6 that Miami should have picked off that the defenders just dropped the balls that could have changed the game a lot more? Yes. Were there a bunch of penalties that hindered them on both sides of the ball? Absolutely. I mean, 10 penalties. I think there were 3 false starts. It's just uncharacteristic of how Miami was in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. That targeting at the end on Xavier Lucas that is going to impact them going into Monday, because now he's out the first half of the game because it happened in the fourth quarter. Again, there's so many domino effects that are going to happen from that game that they're going to have to clean up a lot going into Monday. But we've seen this team time and again where if they had this many penalties even a year ago, probably not winning that game. It just goes back to gutting it out somehow despite shooting themselves in the foot so many different times.
Hey, respectfully, my friend, we are way past last year as far as there are so many things that if this was a year ago, this wouldn't even be close to what it is right now. I mean, it's not just fair. The defense, what you said, but they're doing so many things on both sides, all 3 phases of the game now that it would not. We wouldn't even be. We would have been on hiatus right now with this show by now. Long on hiatus by now. Yeah, you would have gotten getting some vacation time by now, but that's another story.
Vacation? What's that?
Yeah, next week. Maybe next week. We'll see. But yeah, we're overall not their best performance, and that shows you. That shows you how far they've come. That they can overcome all of that and still win a game of this type of intensity, this type of magnitude, and still get through. The U's back to being relevant again. I know they don't want to get too caught up in that, but everybody keeps saying it for a reason, and this is exciting times on that campus. I mean, you got The Rock talking about it at the Golden Globes. You've got all these guys on the sideline coming back. You know, Michael Irvin's got plenty of company now. He was there. He was there at Cal last year, acting like a maniac when Miami was pulling off the comeback against Fernando when he was there and all that stuff. But now he's got the whole crew, they're on the sidelines. I mean, it just shows you, what's that environment kind of been like in the last couple of weeks, like seeing just everyone talking about it, just the rich tradition of this program being brought back to life truly finally after 23 years.
No, internally it's been absolutely fantastic. I mean, again, you mentioned the alumni. I mean, Michael Irvin's been a mainstay. Ray Lewis has been there. Ed Reed has been there. Edgerrin James has been there. Gino Toretto was there last game. Cam Ward was there last game, which I don't want to start the conspiracy theory of the defense may have had its worst game statistically of the season when Cam Ward was on the sideline. But yeah, I'll just stop there. But no, I mean, there were dozens of key guys from the distant past and the not so distant past there. And they're all able to keep that bond. And again, they talk so much about the brotherhood and everyone from the U, from just all walks of life, all time periods, just being able to relish in what's going on right now. And it extends beyond athletics. I mean, you look at President Joe Echeverria. He's an alum from 1978. You look at Dan Radakovich, graduating in the 80s. They have, again, they're the other aspects of this UM football team's success they want it just as bad because they were here when everything was happening. Joe Echeverria, the UM's president, I got to talk to them on the field after the Fiesta Bowl, and he talked about just how magical this is right now. And he said, I've been at every one of the national championship games. All 5 wins were great. I sadly remember the losses more, but he goes, we've been waiting 23 years to see something like this again. And now to finally see it in person, and for him to have a role in it, from just how much he is helped making sure that the university is backing whatever the football team and the athletic department needs, especially in the time that we're in. I mean, NIL, transfer portal, revenue sharing, everything inside the university has to be basically in lockstep in order for any of the programs to be successful nowadays. Yeah. And you're seeing it overall between the university, the alumni, everything. And yet, when you look at it on a national standpoint, Miami still feels like it's the number 2 narrative in almost all their games. I mean, Texas A&M game was, okay, Miami's in, they're playing Texas A&M. Okay, that game was just the first game. Game 2 was Ohio State, defending national champions. Are they going to start their run? Last game was Ole Miss with all of the Lane Kiffin fiasco.
Yeah.
And now the championship game at their home field, as one of the Cinderella stories of this playoff run. Oh yeah, they have the other Cinderella story in Indiana going undefeated with the Heisman Trophy winner who played high school football in the University of Miami's backyard. So even with all of this stuff, everything Miami is doing to get back to the stage, they're still basically the number 2 story in every one of their matchups. And for the current team, they're embracing that. They're embracing okay, no one wants to talk about us, we'll make them talk about us. And they've done that each of the first 3 rounds thus far.
Well, somebody I think brought that up. I saw it. I think I might have seen that on social media. 1983, the first one. It looked like an insurmountable obstacle against Nebraska. Yeah. No one gave Miami a shot in that game. And granted, that wasn't a playoff system. That was just Miami going 10-1 and winning 10 in a row and getting the chance. But the rest is history. We know how they seized that chance and became what they became. But that in that moment, Nebraska looked like the Soviet hockey team against the U.S. to most people. Seriously, they were destroying people that year. If you look at the numbers, and we're talking about a college football that was much different back then. A lot less parity outside of maybe like the top teams. And Miami was at home in this place, rest in peace. And look what happened. And they got it done. So it's kind of interesting. Now they fast forward to now. Indiana is a touchdown favorite, I think. I don't know what the line is right now.
The last one I saw, I think, was either 8 or 9 points.
Yeah. Nebraska was like a 10, 11 point.
They were 11.5, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So the same, it's very similar with Miami being at home. And mind you, this is a unique situation. We're going to talk about it. Miami being technically the home team in quotes, even though it's supposed to be a neutral game. They're the only team that's ever, I think they're the only team that's ever had that at least in the modern era to be able to do that because of the Orange Bowl game itself. And you look at the 3 times they did it, all in a national championship potential setting where it was one or the other. They won them all. They beat Nebraska. They beat Oklahoma. They didn't lose an Orange Bowl at home until 94 when they lost to Nebraska. But that game, Miami wasn't guaranteed if they won, they could win the title. Nebraska was, but not them. But during the run, they were unstoppable when they were at home, especially once it got rolling. But it's very similar now how they're being a lot of people are already counting them out, just seeing how good Indiana's been. That might not be too smart to do if you're having any sort of wager on this game.
Yeah, no doubt. And you mentioned the fact that, again, Miami having home field advantage. The only other team that really had a chance to do that is USC. And again, with the Rose Bowl and all that, but not their. Yeah, exactly. But even then, they didn't win. Remember, the 06 Rose Bowl, Texas USC, that was their only real opportunity to stake a national championship claim at what is
UCLA.
Tangentially,
UCLA is the home team in the Rose Bowl for a long time, and that would have been if UCLA would have had a shot at it at some point. But they never did.
Yeah. But I mean, when you look at just this game right now, I mean, Miami was the underdog against A&M. Miami was the underdog against Ohio State. They
Right.
were, I think it was a 3-point favorite against Ole Miss, but still, that's essentially a toss-up there. But you look at just how this team is operated, they just go. They just as soon as the ball gets spotted, they just go. They don't care what the outside is saying. They don't care what the narrative is. They don't care what everyone's saying, the favorite, the betting lines, yada, yada, yada. Snap the ball. That's all this team worried about. Snap the ball and let everything play out on the field. It got them to this point, and it's going to be, to use Mario Cristobal's favorite line, it's going to be their toughest opponent yet, which is natural because it's the next opponent they face. Every next opponent they face is their toughest opponent. Texas A&M was, then Ohio State was, then Ole Miss was, now Indiana is. And now it's one last game. It's 60 final minutes of what should be a hell of a football game.
I want Mario talking like Cersei Lannister again. I didn't see that before Ole Miss. I had a bad feeling when he started. It was kind of a tame answer that that right before kickoff interview. Like, wait, where's my violence?
Yeah,
I want some of that this week or Monday. I'm sorry again for them. But in all seriousness, to end the whole historical topic conversation, it was a long time, Jordan, where not look and being professional, being unbiased. It was just from an observational point of view. Is Miami ever going to have a chance to really play at this level again? And I think for a long time, especially if you're from South Florida and you like the teams here and all of that, it's kind of like the Dolphins. Like the Dolphins fans have been waiting since the early '80s, since Marino's early days, to get back to the Super Bowl, and it seems so far away the way the shape that franchise is in. So UM was like that for about a decade, where it was like, is this ever going to happen again? Are they ever going to, even in our lifetimes, are we ever going to see this again? So for them to get there and to do it this year too, because like you said, this team had expectations, even externally. I think they had expectations, but I don't know if anybody thought they'd do this. I think people thought of them maybe as a playoff team, and let's see. But a national champion or a national runner-up, even, I don't think a lot of people externally gave them that type of credit.
Definitely not. I mean, they were anywhere from like number 10 to number 15 in all the preseason polls to start the season. The goal was win the ACC, or the expectations externally was win the ACC, or at very worst be runner-up and get into the playoff field, and then see if anything happens there. They obviously did not win the ACC. They didn't even finish second in the ACC. Lovely tiebreakers. Great work, Coastal Conference. All Coastal Chaos Conference, whatever we call it. But they proved that if they're given a shot, they can make something happen. And they learned what it takes to win a game, and they learned what it takes and what goes into building a program that isn't just going to be like this for 1 year. Their goal is for this to be the start of sustainable playoff appearances. And this goes back to 4 years ago when they hired Mario Cristobal. He mentioned straight up at the beginning, it's probably going to be rough early. He was going to have to basically overhaul everything, basically burn it to the ground and build it back up. It was going to take 3, 4, possibly 5 years. Joe Taveria, when I talked to him, he said, it was a 5-year plan. We're at the national championship in year 4. I guess it's okay to be a year early on this. Right. And yes, it's very true. I mean, we saw the glimpses last year when they get to 10 wins and they make it to being on the cusp of a playoff team. They realized what was wrong. And they realized, again, defense needs to be overhauled. They overhaul the defense. They do enough to make sure that the offense is still competitive, and they find that balance. And now the goal is, regardless of what happens on Monday, obviously, if you can win the national championship, put the stamp on it. No matter what happens, Mario Cristobal and the University of Miami Hurricanes athletic department has put the football program in a position to be able to sustain this if they're able to keep playing their cards right. I mean, we saw everything from all the recruiting classes that have stacked up, and we've seen how Mario Cristobal has been able to win the transfer portal to close out and fill whatever gaps are left over. If he can keep getting hit after hit after hit and stacking those recruiting classes and stacking those transfer portal acquisitions, this team has a chance to, again, I'm not saying they're going to win every year. I'm not going to say they're going to make it to the championship every year, But this is a team that, if everything keeps going the way that it's going with its trajectory, they are going to be nationally. They're going to find a way to consistently be nationally relevant.
Yeah. Well, let's we're definitely going to talk about Indiana and Fernando Mendoza and everybody, and like kind of break down this matchup. But let's since you're on the topic of sustainability beyond this year, let's talk portal, because I think some people, is how much, if any, of a concern level is there that Miami has missed out on a couple of QBs they targeted in the portal? I mean, obviously it's not over yet. They could still try to get somebody else, but is there any concern, at least at that position, that Miami hasn't been able to land one of the guys that they really wanted?
Yeah, I mean, this is tough. I mean, they first went after Brandon Sorsby, the Cincinnati quarterback. He went to Texas Tech. Money talks. They then went after Sam Levitt, who they were targeting very early on. He went to LSU, Lane Kiffin. But now at this point, you look at the available transfers, basically all the big guys are gone. I mean, DJ Lagway looks like he's going to Baylor. Dylan Raiola is going to Oregon. They had so many different guys who were big name guys in the portal who have already committed. The only real name left out there, and he's not even officially out there, is Ty Simpson from Alabama, who declared for the draft last week. I believe Wednesday's the deadline for anyone not in the title game to formally be added to the draft pool. And they and a few other SEC teams are trying to throw whatever money they can to see if he'll back out. And then see if they can give enough money to try to get him to come, a la what they did with Carson Beck last year. Obviously, the Carson Beck situation was a little bit different. Carson Beck was coming off the injury. His draft stock had plummeted, and an extra year would benefit him. I'm not sure that's still the case with Ty Simpson. So based off what's currently available in the portal, there's not much, which means unless something happens after this championship game, that another surprise name maybe enters the portal, or they're able to find something, they may have to look internally at either Emory Williams, Judd Anderson, Luke Nickel, or incoming freshman Darion Coleman.
I mean, it's almost like become like the old-fashioned way you could say in college football, like, oh, what about the guys you have? How about that? Mm-hmm. But yeah, it is a little bit more on the development side to get someone like that ready to go. I mean, I saw Darion Coleman in high school, Cam Ward-ish, kind of similar to that type, a guy that can make plays, both scrambling and with his arm. Luke Nickel is impressive as well. You saw him, I remember that game when he torched American Heritage a few years ago. I mean, it's interesting to think. It's interesting to think what could be out there. But I mean, like you said, unless a little surprise happens.
Yeah. And
I don't know if you want to say honestly, it or I want to say it.
I'll say it because it was a theory that was brought up to me, honestly, right before we started recording, that I didn't truly think about. Miami is playing Indiana. We all know about Fernando Mendoza. We're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about him a little bit. We have also talked in the past on the show about his brother Alberto, who is right now is Fernando's backup and is potentially in line to take over for Indiana next year.
But Indiana just brought in a quarterback.
Indiana did just bring in the quarterback. And Mario Cristobal did talk highly about both Mendoza brothers when he talked on Monday. I mean, this is just speculation here. There's no actual reporting on this. There's nothing concrete about this, but could they potentially land a Mendoza brother after all? After not getting Fernando when he went into the transfer portal 2 years ago, or after Cal 2 years ago, or Cal last year. Sorry.
After you're starting stuff, Jordan, but I like it.
but I mean, it is something to consider. I mean, there is the Columbus tie. You and I have both said, again, we both saw both Mendoza brothers, and at least at the high school level, Alberto was the better of the two. And Mario Cristobal even said that he's praised Fernando Mendoza up and down on Monday, and then he unprompted brought up Alberto and went, he possibly has a chance to be even better than his brother.
Yeah.
Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, question mark?
Look, I've seen Indiana games this year where they were blowing out Big Ten, overmatched Big Ten teams. And the second Alberto went in, it looked like the same. It looked like they hadn't even replaced Fernando. It looked like he was running the same, running the same plays with the same efficiency. He's good, and I can tell you that more from experience because, like, I didn't really cover Fernando much in high school, but I did cover Alberto, and still to this day, one of his most impressive performances was that state title game when they beat Mandarin, and he was both with his legs and with his arm, an impressive performance that Bryce Fitzgerald was a part of. It's a little it's eye opening. It's kind of interesting. I mean the ties are there. I mean, obviously it would have to be some kind of situation where he'd want out and want to come back home, come back to Miami. All I can say is, look, Indiana brought in a quarterback, and I was not expecting that. I thought they were just going to hand the keys over to younger brother and try to keep rolling, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, that's
fascinating to think about.
Again, that's something that's going to be interesting to watch. And for transfer portal, just for the timelines with everything, for any team that is not in the national championship, players on those teams have until Friday to enter the portal. The teams that are in the championship game, so Miami and Indiana, they play on the 19th. Those players have until the 24th to enter the portal. That's not when you have to commit to your new team. That's just when you have to go into the portal. You can commit to your new team whenever you want after that, or go back to your current school. But you have to be physically in the portal by Friday if you're not on Miami or Indiana, or by the 24th if you are Miami or Indiana. Or you can just go the Xavier Lucas route, and if your team blocks, you just unenroll and re-enroll somewhere else without communication with the football team. So really anything's possible. And these are just the formal dates.
Right. But we'd recommend not doing that to avoid the legal headache that'll follow on top of that, I'm sure. So
yes.
But let's wrap this up by talking about this matchup. Jordan, obviously we've talked about the magnitude of it, hype, all that, but just from a football standpoint, can the Hurricanes beat Indiana? It's gonna be, look, it goes without saying the type of obstacle they're facing. But I still stick true to they will have a chance if they can have Fernando Mendoza running around under pressure like they have during the better performances that this defense has had this year, and up front, offensive line can establish dominance and be able to run the ball consistently. I think at the very least, Miami will be in this game and it will be a battle. And I don't see how you can't say it's impossible for them to win it if they can do those things and maybe even get a little home momentum going. And an interesting stat that I saw somebody throw out there, it's one of the smaller D lines that Miami has faced all year. But I mean, that can be deceptive too, because these guys are quick, they're agile, they can move around.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a challenge. Size-wise, Miami will be able to impose, but also it challenges the Miami offensive line's agility handling these guys too, because they're so quick off the ball as well. We've seen it over and over, even again in this past game against Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, the speeds, the stunts. I mean, Indiana's going to have to throw everything to get past Miami's offensive line, but they've shown they can throw everything. Yeah. And again, I've said all 3 rounds, win at the line of scrimmage, win in the trenches, Miami gives themselves a fighting chance. Miami's also going to need to find a way to be able to run the ball against an Indiana team that, oh, by the way, is probably the best run defense in college football. They're also going to have to limit the turnovers against the team that leads the country in turnover margin. They're going to have a lot on their plate. And again, we talk so much about Fernando Mendoza, but this defense is legit. This defense knows what it's doing, and they have a few local guys on that side of the ball too. D'Angelo Pons out of I believe he went to Chaminade, if I remember correctly. And they have guys who know what they're doing. They're a veteran team, and again, that's the thing. These are 2 veteran teams. I mean, Indiana had to basically go through the transfer portal for Kirk Cignetti's first couple of years just to be able to field the team. And they're planning on going more the traditional high school recruiting route down the road, but they have a lot of older dudes on their roster right now, and that veteran aspect is so critical at this stage. And that applies to both sides. That applies to both sides. I mean, Miami has a lot of senior leadership on this roster as well. It's going to be, can Miami win the line of scrimmage, and can Miami minimize or completely eliminate their mistakes, because they're probably going to have to play as close to a perfect game as they've had all season if they want to be able to win this game.
Yeah, and even that age that's been talked about, that these are, a lot of these guys are like 21, 22, 23-year-olds. Just that physicality is an advantage too over guys that are a little younger than you too. So that's been a huge edge in their success as well. Yeah, this matchup to me, again, I just think it comes down to that, and then not obviously they got to go back to what worked the first 2 playoff games. You can't commit even half of those 9. Not only there were the amount of penalties, it was when those penalties were happening. It was
and
always
the
that key
magnitude of
moment.
them, again, personal fouls and things of that nature. The big chunk penalties.
Right, because if it's coming, on a 2nd and 5, and then it's a 2nd and 10, but you still convert it. But these were coming like on 3rd downs. These were keeping drives alive for Ole Miss. They were killing drives for Miami, things of that nature. If they cut out all that crap and then just that will give them a chance, absolutely, to win this game. And I still think the pressure, because Fernando looked like he had all day against Oregon, and that can't happen.
Oregon and Alabama, he was fantastic in both games. And again, there was so much talk about when he won the Heisman. Again, his stats weren't as gaudy as most Heisman winners, and everyone was saying, like, each of the first 2 playoff rounds, going, okay, it's time for Fernando to earn his Heisman. Well, I think he earned his Heisman.
Yeah,
I want actually pull up the exact numbers. To me, it was just absolutely unbelievable how efficient he was against both those teams.
Yeah,
I mean, you have the Alabama game, 14 for 16, 3 touchdowns, more touchdowns than incompletions. Oregon, 17 for 20, 5 touchdowns. He has 8 touchdowns and only 5 incompletions in 2 playoff games. That's absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. And again, the passing yards aren't that great. He only has, I think, 370 passing yards, but it's because his defense sets him up for short fields. Or the Oregon game, 3 turnovers, a pick 6, and then 2 fumble recoveries that got them inside the 25. All he had to do was, whoop, okay, 20 yards, touchdown, 7 points, but 20 yards, but he got 7 points. Or 4 yards, you got 7 points. So this Indiana team, when they force mistake, when their defense forces an offense to make mistakes, the offense capitalizes. And I looked it up. Let me actually pull up those exact numbers in terms of just points off turnovers. It was a wild stat. I mean, they have 31 turnovers on the year, which is 3rd nationally. And I believe it's something like 145 points off of those turnovers. 29 turnovers have resulted in 134 points. So they're basically averaging 5 points per turnover forced. That's almost a touchdown on every turnover they force. Miami, meanwhile, they have given up I believe it's 14 turnovers. Miami's only allowed 10 points off those turnovers. So Miami's only given up scores on 2 of the 14 turnovers they have given up. So if Miami's defense is able to make up and counter the mistakes that the offense makes, if the offense makes mistakes, that will neutralize one of Indiana's key factors when they're able to produce and able to score.
Yeah, I don't think they can afford.
They can't afford any. They can't afford anything.
But not. It has to be kind of like, at worst, I think they can. They have to go back to the start they had against Ohio State.
Yeah,
and which is a good comp, considering that was the team that was neck and neck with Indiana a few weeks ago. And dominated as much as they did during the season. Miami, that first, they had a couple drops and the fumble, and that was it. After that, they overcame it, kept going. They probably can't afford to even do that, because look what happened to Oregon with the pick 6 right out of the chute the other day.
Correct.
But if you think about it, Oregon punched back initially, and then it kind of got away from them after that, the way Indiana was able to establish dominance. But it can't be anything even remotely close to the Ole Miss game, where they kept them in the game. And even the Texas A&M game, where Carter Davis was missing field goals. We know why. We're not going to get into that right now. But that they have to have a fast start. They have to not make too many mistakes that could put them 7 or even double digits down early, because then it's going to be a long night and it's going to be over quick. This team can put you away fast. So Miami has to start fast and make it, at the very least, make it a stalemate early on that'll keep you in this game until they can potentially make the big plays later on that could tip the scales one way or the other. So.
Yeah, and with that, I want to just quickly update a few injuries, because some of these are going to impact some of that game. When you look at specifically their defensive backs, Damari Brown, who hasn't played in the playoffs, is still considered day-to-day at best. He's been dealing with a foot injury since basically right before the playoffs started. That's kept him out all month. OJ Frederick, who only played 5 snaps against Ole Miss. Mario Cristobal says he's good to go, and they're honestly going to need him to be good to go because they're without Xavier Lucas in the first half because of that targeting penalty in the fourth quarter against Ole Miss. So right now, if Damari can't go, you're down to Ethan O'Connor and a banged-up OJ Frederick for at least the first half of the game. And they have a true freshman, Jabari Antoine, who ended up getting a lot of run against Ole Miss, held his own, but I don't think they want to be throwing a true freshman who has very minimal experience into the fire at this stage. So they need OJ Frederick to be as close to healthy as possible, or Damari Brown to at least be able to gut something out, at least for the first half until they have Xavier Lucas back.
Right.
And then
get a few snaps in at least.
Yeah, get something in, even if it's just a play or two a drive, and then you rotate out, just something. Akeem Mesidor, who seemed to injure his elbow late against Ole Miss, he's good to go. Ahmad Moten, who missed a little bit of time but came back in, he's good to go. The only other key injury, Elijah Lofton, got carted off in the second quarter against Ole Miss. Mario Cristobal said his status is in question. If he's out, that's going to basically leave Alex Bowman, the Tulane transfer, who has basically been splitting time at tight end with Elijah Lofton. He's a decent pass catcher. He's a red zone target in terms of his size. But
saw a lot of targets in the Ole Miss game.
Yeah, you saw a lot of that because he had to play with Elijah Lofton out. But if Elijah Lofton can't go, you're basically going to be relying almost solely on Alex Bowman in the title game at your tight end position. So that's stuff that's going to be interesting to monitor as we go. The first official injury availability report comes out Friday, and we get one every day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then about 90 minutes before kickoff, the final one will come out. So those will be monitored as we go. There's no practice access until, I believe, Saturday. And even then, that's only going to be a 15-minute viewing window. So that'll be our one live inside look at what exactly is going on. And we'll be monitoring all of that throughout the week.
Monitor all of what Jordan does throughout this week leading up to Monday. And then we'll have all kinds of coverage, both on and off the field, leading up to the national title game. I'm even jumping into the fray a little bit. We'll have a look both at obviously comprehensive on the Hurricanes, but also about Fernando Mendoza coming home to play a national title game in his backyard. A lot of Columbus connections on both sides in this game, so we'll dive into that as well. But catch it all at MiamiHerald.com. And, of course, we appreciate you for watching another episode of Eye on the U on YouTube or at MiamiHerald.com. We'll be back next week. Definitely that'll be the end of the season one way or the other, but we'll be back to recap. Are they hoisting the national championship trophy, or is it headed to Bloomington? And we'll see. We'll recap it all. We'll see all the emotions, good or bad, that this team has had, and cap what's been one way or the other has been a tremendous run and a return to glory for the University of Miami football program. Jordan and I will be right there at Hard Rock Stadium on the 19th, also bringing you all of it with a lot of our colleagues helping out as well. So until then, for Jordan McPherson, I'm Andre Fernandez. Thank you for watching Eye on the U. Enjoy the national championship game, everybody.